Good afternoon. We are here today with another legacy leader celebrating legacy leaders. Jeneen from Jeneen C.A.R.E.S, where we are caring, achieving, restoring, empowering, and supporting for our youth. This organization was started in order to continue my principalship virtually, to continue my community service with fellow legacy leaders across the country who have been chiming in, giving their time, community service-wise, 30 minutes just to kind of share their stories of how they arrived in the positions that they're in now and to reflect on the current status of our world and nation today. And so I want to thank another one of my line sisters, Ameenah Karim, for being here today. Thank you so much. Ameenah Karim-Capers, I love you and thank you for taking your time today on this Sunday to be with me. I know you're a busy mom and I understand that, so thank you so much for your time. My first question to you is really kind of just to give that message of hope. So talk to us about your journey going from an elementary to middle to high, and you can highlight only the significant moments, maybe the most 5 or so significant moments in your life going from childhood to your career now, and tell us what that is, and so that perhaps someone can connect with you, someone can get a message of hope by something you say.
Well, good morning, everyone, and good morning, Jeneen. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here this morning. I think that what you're doing with Jeneen C.A.R.E.S is so important for our community, and so I appreciate you and I applaud you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
So how I got here, well, I am Ameenah Karim-Capers. I am the 8th of 9 from my mom, and the 5th of 6 from my mom and dad's union together.
Wow.
How I got here, man. So I had a little bit of a different story. Grew up in Highland Park, Michigan, in the inner city, with the 5 siblings, and we didn't have much, but my mom always instilled in us that we were going to be somebody. She told us that we would be scientists and engineers. That's all we ever heard was, oh, you're going to be a scientist or engineer. And we had songs about it. And she was an educator as well. So we started off in my mom's school. She had a private school. It was a Muslim private school because I am Muslim, and but it was open to all. So it, any students could come, and there were children that were not Muslims. A lot of the students there were not Muslims that came to my mom's school, and we had all kind of life lessons, and we always didn't have a lot growing up. There were times when our hot water was turned off, but we had to persevere. And so I think it was with my mom instilling in us that we were always going to do well and be somebody, that helped me get to where I am today. My mom did pass when I was 11 years old. And so it was me and my 5 of the siblings and my father that had to, keep going and keep moving. And so we moved from Highland Park, Michigan to Memphis, Tennessee after my mom passed away, and just had to do. And so that's what we did. Me and my siblings, we did what we had to do. And one of my brothers went on to Howard University, and that inspired us all to then go to Howard. And so,
Was that Omar?
Yes, HU.
Yes, HU, I remember him vividly. Before I even met you, he was working on campus.
That's right.
A student, but working.
4 of the 6 of us went to Howard, and all did engineering. So we all went and have engineering degrees. And then I went on to law school, like 2 of my other brothers went on to law school. And now I'm an attorney. So I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in chemical engineering is my undergrad degree. And then I went on to law school, also at Howard University, HU.
I think I might have missed that first HU.
Yes, I did. I said HU.
You know.
you know.
Okay.
And so I am an attorney now. And so I started off my legal career in New York as a prosecutor in the Bronx District Attorney's Office. Had a stint doing uh, um, I had civil defense with Allstate Insurance Company, and then went back to prosecution in Rockland County. And so I was a prosecutor for 15 years, then needed a change from New York and wanted to, be closer to my family. So we moved back down to Maryland. And so now I'm here in Prince George's County, Maryland, with two wonderful, beautiful children. And I just always kept in my mind that what my mom said, that we were going to do something great. And that's what I think we need to instill in our children, what we want our children to do. So that's how I made it to where I am, with my mom's words of encouragement and wisdom, even though I didn't have my mom after I was 11. And then my father passed away 10 years after my mom. And so, me and my five siblings were basically orphans. But because we had that solid base of my mom instilling in us positivity and that we were going to be somebody, that's what we always kept with us. And that's how I got to where I am today, from my mom.
Wow, what a legacy leadership, and not just you, but your parents. It sounds like they definitely were legacy leaders as well. I
Absolutely.
appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate your openness. I appreciate your honesty. And I can connect real quick. I know you have a lot to do going on this morning, so I want to just touch on one of the things during or after each response that you give. And so I attended, believe it or not, Sister Claire Muhammad private school in Philadelphia, because my mother was Muslim for some time. And so I remember a lot of things. I remember, like, what you said, the positive, the messages, the life lessons, the discipline. I
Yes.
remember the Pepsi paddle. Woo, boy. Everything. And so, a lot of those lessons, build character. They build resistance. They build, like, that kind of, I can do all things messages.
Yes.
I fear nothing but God, or Allah. That's what I'm saying. So I understand and relate with all of that. So thank you for sharing. Next question. I am a restorative leader. You are a restorative leader because you believe in community. You believe in family. You believe in celebrating family for sure. I've seen how you guys are in your family. And I know connections through Facebook. Rahima, they were with me at Sister Claire Muhammad in Philadelphia. So we have a lot, and Girls High, actually. So we have a lot of connections, even beyond Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and Voracious 64 Alpha Chapter, Spring 96, the unforgettable line
Right. That's
in
right.
spring of 1996. And we're coming up on our 25th. So happy 25th to my sands of spring of 96. And for us, that includes Voracious 64 and Authentic 35. So 25 coming up, we will be on the yard in full force.
Yes.
So anyway, talk about historic moments. We are talking about historic moments in time right now. Let's fast forward beyond Howard University. We are in 2020. We are dealing with a pandemic called COVID-19. We're experiencing on our virtual timelines. We're looking at leaders across the nation. We're looking at people across the country doing amazing things to demonstrate because of Black Lives Matters. And so right now, my timeline, my mind, my children, my friends, my family, my sorors, my strangers that I don't even know, I'm seeing them all come together and kind of just still with all these restrictions about physical limitations and the fear of COVID, that's on my mind. What is on your mind right now?
Well, it's a lot on my mind right now. It's a lot going on in the process of moving during the COVID-19. So it's a lot going on. But we do have two crises actually that are going on and unfolding at the same time. And that's something that's been weighing on me. We first had COVID-19 pandemic that put us in home, had us slow down and be still. And so with COVID-19, it's hitting our community harder than any other community because of our lack of access to proper medical care. And we're being turned away at the hospitals from proper care while our counterparts are being taken in and tested and they're treated. And it's this a disparate treatment that is really hitting our community hard. So that's one of the first things that's been on my mind, and that's what started. And then and now, on top of the COVID-19 and the impact that it's had with our children, where parents had to be at home to work and homeschool, we now have these senseless murders. And it's just been escalating over this past like year. It's just been escalating. Over the last 10 years, there have been so many murders of our Black men and women that it's just hurting me and hurting my heart. We have lack of respect by people with pigment deficiencies. I don't know what you want to call it, white people with pigment deficiencies, where we're not treated equally, where our lives are less than other lives. We have our Black men and women out here being harassed, chased down, shot at, and murdered because of the color of their skin. What our ancestors and our parents and grandparents went through, 60 years and 100 years ago, we're still having to do now, even though they marched and protested. We're still having to do this in 2020, which, is unbelievable. Like, what did our people march and protest for? For us to be able to be here now, but we still have a long way to go. Like, we can't even walk down the street or go to a playground with our children for fear that someone's going to think we're doing something wrong, and then they want to chase us down, hunt us down, and kill us. And it's not just the law enforcement, it's other people taking law into their own hands. It's on my mind is that I'm afraid for my two Black children, my son Jaleel, who's 11, and my daughter Lena, who's 8. I'm afraid for them. And I have to teach them how to go outside the house. Like, who else has to teach their children how to properly go outside the house? No one. I have to teach them about what we went through and what our parents and grandparents went through, and now what we're going through now, that racism is still here. And I believe that things are coming to a head, but it's what number 45, I believe when he was put into office, there has been more blatant racism. Like, there was a lot of undercover racism, but once he got into the office, there's blatant racism that's coming out, and people are not afraid or not trying to hide their racism. And it's just really a shame that what our parents and grandparents walked for and protested against, and some that even died for, it's still happening today. So that's what's been on my mind recently.
Well, thank you, because definitely, given my background and experiences that are very similar to yours, I obviously am having similar thoughts, having similar conversations with sorority sisters, with family members, with African American brothers that I'm really concerned about, because they are like professional, well kept, well polished individuals, but at the same time they are hurting. They are hurting as they watch, and they are hurting as they are crying for the reality of, yes, you can teach your sons all of these lessons about how they should and how they should respond. I mean, I even to this day, if I'm driving and an officer comes behind me, I see Sandra Gland in my face, regardless of whether my tags are correct or I'm doing the right thing and nothing, I still get a sense of anxiety when an officer is driving behind me and I'm in the right, doing nothing wrong. Right. And so, I talked to one of our friends, our mutual line sisters, and I said the same thing. I said, I'm teaching Timothy at 6, how to, when he gets pulled over and he's not even driving, put your hands up, do this, you talk, you say, yes, sir. And you, I'm saying all these things to him. And she's like, well, and so she's, that could be, that's great. But you see, they're killing people regardless of whether they're doing those things. And so I'm fearful when I hear the conversations from my African-American males who I respect and lift up, and they're in great places in their lives career-wise, and they're saying things like, you know what, Jeneen, I'm sorry, I might be that one on camera who resists this time. And that just terrifies me, because I'm like, no, This is not the way to do this. Let's restore, let's repair, let's work together, one community together strong. And so I'm proud of Frederick community, which for some is deemed as one of a racist county, but I definitely have appreciated the opportunity to have had served as principal in Frederick County Public Schools. And so for me, my lens is a little bit different, but also not without challenges, because I will tell you, even as serving as principal, I've had staff members come up to me and look at my face sometimes and say, "Are you okay?" Because, I'm a very positive person most of the time, but sometimes you just can't hide some of the things that you encounter as you lead. And so I understand the feelings and the emotions, but I'm hopeful that we change and we can do some restoration. And so tonight, even, I'm offering at 6:30 a free training, and I offered myself to any organizations, including the Minneapolis Police Department, for training, for de-escalation strategies, to teach them the restorative way, to ask questions first, to seek to understand before you seek to punish our children. I'm talking about the International Institute for Restorative Practices, who is leading in research around the globe on how we can make changes, how we can fall away from our punitive style practices and implement alternative measures that are saving lives across the country and that are actually changing the narratives behind the disproportionality in not just behavior and discipline, but also in academics, because they're teaching staff members and all stakeholders how to build relationships, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I appreciate all the Frederick community who came out on Friday, led by our youth. There were youth in Frederick County that stood up and say, enough is enough. And these youth skillfully is the key word, and intentionally planned a march that included music. It included all races. It included messages of hope. It included young artists who were sharing their heartache and their stories. It included non-violent protests. And so to the youth of Frederick, the scholars who made that event happen, I am so proud of you, and continue to lead, learn, empower others, act with an action plan, just as you skillfully demonstrated on Friday, and to dream big. As you heard my line sister just say, that there's nothing that you cannot do. You need to always dream big. And so next question, I know you have to go soon and we're going to wrap this up. The next and maybe the last question for you, it'll be the first time I cut an interview short, but the question is, what's been the hardest?
That's fine.
What is the hardest thing for you of all that you just mentioned and all that we've just shared in common and talked about? What's been the hardest?
So the hardest thing for me, I guess, right now during this pandemic is it's twofold, having to juggle working full time with basically homeschooling my children full time and trying to protect them from catching, COVID-19, on top of trying to talk to them about what's happening in the society today, with the recent murders of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many other unnecessary murders. Trying to talk to them, to tell them these are our fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters that are being murdered. And my question to society is, when is enough enough? Like, this is hard for me to have to talk to my children about things that our parents had to talk to us about and our grandparents had to talk to our parents about. It's hard for me to have to talk to them about when people say all lives matter. Yes, all lives certainly do matter, but right now this is not about our lives, because Black lives don't seem to matter much to people anymore. And so that's what's hard for me as well, to have to talk to my children about racism that it still exists, and knowing that I have to talk to them about how to interact with law enforcement and others to ensure that they come home to me safely every day. So that's something that's been hard for me.
I definitely echo that, and I agree with both points. Those are two things that are really hard for me. So we'll move on. I will say, what are you doing to remain positive? You already are a positive person, but I know that you're going through some things too. So what are you doing to remain positive? For me, the self-care has been important. And this evening at 6:30, I'm offering a session on restorative practices, focusing a training, basically focusing on self-care through the crisis. And so what are you doing with your family, with your friends, with your children to stay positive?
So what I always do to stay positive is just to keep God first. Start off with prayer. Pray to Allah, which is an Arabic word for God. Keeping Allah first is what I have, and so praying and prayer is something that always seemed to help me stay grounded. But beyond prayer, because that's always the first thing that I always do, uh, the other things that I'm trying to remain positive is in doing what I can do and what I can control is to spend more time with my children, um, talk to them, uh, love on them. I also try to donate to causes that are trying to make a difference. I come on to programs like Jeneen Cares to put my voice out there and to speak out um, against what's going on now. I'm also having more conversations with my family and friends and loved ones about how we can make a change. And I think that this is helping me to remain positive. Talk about the injustices that are going on. And just like you said, where you are offering up your services to give training, I was talking to one of my cousins, and she was talking about how there needs to be some type of better training for graduates of police academies, some better and more rigorous
Absolutely. And I
training.
volunteer my services. So if you want to connect me with people, I think that the International Institute of Restorative Practices is the only licensed graduate school who are training people, both, for their education background, but also to be licensed trainers. So I'm a licensed trainer for the International Institute of Restorative Practices. And that's why I've been doing mainly in the schools. But given what's going on, I'm going beyond the schools now. It's not about just the schools because, there's other things that are impacting the schools. And so that's my next mission.
Absolutely. And so I definitely am going to talk to you offline about this, but we discussed a 2-year training equal to like an associate's degree for all people wanting to become officers, where it's like diversity training, cultural awareness training, required to have rigorous screening like the FBI for background and for mental health. They would have to be required to get do community organizing and volunteering and become aware of other cultures. It's a lot that I have to talk about with that. So you and I can talk offline about that, but certainly trainings and an ongoing training and not just, training before they become police officers, but something that's ongoing, which they're required to get done, or they could be, docked their pay, or they could be suspended if they don't get their training. So that's something that you and I can definitely talk offline about later on.
That's exciting. Yes. And we'll definitely plan. So look for us coming soon with some information about how you too can help support or share information about our next collaboration events.
Absolutely.
So the final question, and this question is perfect timing. God always things right, right on time. I think that there are many parents, and maybe you're not speaking to parents of educators or students in our schools. Maybe you could speak to the parents of the victims of Black Lives Matter. What are you going to say to them? Because they're looking for messages of hope. They're looking for fair trials. They're looking for prosecution. They're looking for civil rights, really.
Yes.
What messages do you have to them? Is there anything that you're hearing, any plans that you think may come out? I know that I've been watching the representation, and I know that there's some, people that are behind what's going on. Is there anything you can share of hope for those parents and those siblings, even of people like Breonna Taylor? We sang happy birthday to Breonna Taylor at our march or our rally on Friday. It was a beautiful thing. We took a knee. Imagine looking out in Frederick County public, in a public park, Baker Park, and seeing people of all races taking a knee with their fists in the air, singing happy birthday to Breonna. What a beautiful moment that was for Frederick County. But what messages of hope can you send to those victims, those parents, those siblings that have lost and don't understand the inequity?
The message of hope is that their deaths was not in vain. I know it doesn't seem like it right now, but there are changes that's being made, and just continue to have hope, continue to stay in prayer, because I believe that there is going to be change. Like, people are it's not just our people that are marching. There are others that are marching. You see a lot of non-blacks that are getting together, and they're out there just as strong as we are. And so I think that this culmination of all these recent senseless murders are going to make a change. It's going to be a change. People are doing more. And so I want to give you that note of hope, to just don't don't give up your pressing for change. There is still hope, and we can make a change. Have promised to myself, because right now I'm doing, in-house counsel work for a construction company, but I promised myself that I need to make a change and get back out there and do something with my career that's going to help with changing the legislation, changing the policies, and the deaths of your families, the deaths of your sons and daughters, the death of your fathers and mothers, is going to help with this change. And so I made that promise to myself, and I make that promise to you all, that I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do more with my degree to help make this change. And so just keep the hope. Their deaths were not in vain, and we all love you all, and will continue to pray for you all. And that's my message of hope.
And that is awesome. And I want to close with that. I want to say thank you. I want to say prayers of hope and healing to all those who have been impacted through all that's going on right now. To all those, I mean, I know that in my family, we definitely have had a touch of COVID in our lives as well. And so we're praying for all the first lines. We're praying for all of the victims who have lost their lives and their family members. We're praying for the legal system, that you will, like she
Yes.
said, just step up and make something that's going to really change things. We talk about laws here. We're talking about policies. And so that's what I'm envisioning going to occur. So if you are a lawyer, or you are a friend of a lawyer, and you haven't had a tough conversation to challenge their thinking, if they're not thinking big enough and dreaming big,
That's
I
right.
encourage you to have those courageous conversations with them. So thank you so much for your time today. Line sister, I love you, and I'll be talking to you soon. So have a
Yes.
great afternoon.
You too. Have a good day.
Thank you.